Some of you commented on my last video to make a tutorial about this, so here I am. Disclaimer, this tutorial is a little bit advanced for some of the beginners, and I am not a professional game dev. Here are the pointers of this video. Before we begin, make sure that you downloaded Brack's Platformer on his GitHub. Some of these assets also add the spreadsheet here in this folder directory. Link was in the description below. Let's go. Open the player scene and click the player script. Here, let's add the class name called player. Class name is basically just naming your script, so we can reference the class name later. Let's add a boolean variable called isRiding that check if the player is riding. Add another boolean variable called canShoot. Let's make our direction variable outside the physics process function. Now add an animation player node. And let's create two animations named mount and unmount. The animation player can allow us to easily manipulate the character's sprite position. We will adjust its position later once we created the mounts. Add two 2D nodes called mount spawn and projectile spawn. You can also use marker 2D if you like, but I prefer node 2D for simplicity. Add a marker 2D as child of these nodes. Add an onReady bar by pressing Ctrl and dragging it to the editor. We will come back here later. Let's go into making mounts. We are using two separated nodes. One contains a character body 2D where the player can interact. The other one was the animated sprite 2D for the visuals. It will be instantiated later. In the character body 2D, add animated sprite 2D, collision shape 2D, and area 2D with its collision. Name the area 2D into mount area. In the character body 2D, named it yellow lizard. Save the scene. Create another scene that contains an animated sprite 2D and name it yellow lizard mount. Save the scene. Now let's add some animation. Remember that the horizontal has 24 values while the vertical has only one. Just follow me all along. Let's add a collision. Now let's add a collision shape to the mount area and change its color for easy separation. In the yellow lizard mount, we have three animations named idle, move, and jump. Just follow these steps on the screen. Now that we are done, let's add a script. Remove these lines of codes. Let's make him not move from now. In the mount area, click this signal. Click this. It will automatically generate this code. It basically detects if a body enters like character body 2D. Now type if body is player. That is why we add a class name player to reference it. Let's call isRiding variable and turn it into true. Also that can shoot variable. Lastly, we will queue_free itself. Let's add the yellow lizard in our game level. Let's test it now. But something is wrong. Let's fix it. Let's organize our collision mask a little bit. First, we go to the collision under the collision object. Click the pencil icon and let's rename our collision layer. Now, let's reassign the values of the collision layers and mask. And now it can queue_free itself. Remember that the collision layer refers to itself, while the collision mask refers to what collision layers it can detect. Back to the player scene in the player script, add this variable that contains a preload of a scene. But what is preload? Preload means a scene has already been loaded once a game runs. All we'll need is to instantiate it. Find the yellow mount scene in the file directory, drag it to the script. Below, add a function called spawnMount. Add a variable called m that has a value of mount.instantiate. Call the spawnMount variable and add the child, the m. Back to the mount script, just call the body.spawnMount. And here we go. We can instantiate our mount, but we need to clean up the player's position. In the mount spawn, instantiate the mount. We will check and adjust its position. Make sure you are adjusting the marker and not the spawn itself. Once you are satisfied with its position, adjust the player's sprite position. Here below, click animation. There's a diamond with a key. It's called keyframes that tells a frame in the animation player. Shift click the position. Make sure it's under the unmount animation. Under mount animation, adjust its position. Click here again and shift click this. Click the reset animation and delete this lizard mount. Now we have all the positions ready. Here in the player script, here in the animations, just wrap it with if not player is riding. And if else, we will play the mount in animation player. Now it can ride the mount, but idling wasn't the ideal animation with riding. Here in the animated sprite, add another animation. Here in the else statement, Add the mount animation from animated sprite 2D. As you can see, the character was rotating, but for the mount we will fix it later on this video. In the mount scene, in mount script, add the body that animated sprite that flip H is false. This makes our player face to the right when riding. But take note, it is still not perfect and there are some circumstances when the player is not facing to the right. But what about the fireball? It has the same concept in riding mount. By instantiating and adding it to the parent node, all we need is to make it traverse. First, add the base node 2D, add animated sprite and add a timer. Add animation player. You can even add an audio stream player for sound effects. Rename it to fireball. Now that we have all the nodes that we need, save the scene. Let's create an animation in our animated sprite 2D. Just find those two fireballs and drag it. Look, it is moving. Let's add some script. Add this ready variable in the script. Add an export variable called speed. On the ready function, make set top level true. This makes our fireball not spawn at the top left corner of the screen. Add the script to make the SFX play. Make this physics process. To make it traverse, we should tell the compiler its position and what axis it will go. Here, we tell its position and make it transform into the x-axis by adding it. Now multiply it by speed and delta. The only thing that is left was to spawn it into the player. We will create another preload variable. Locate the fireball scene and drag it. Add a function named spawn projectile. Since the logic of mount and fireballs are the same, I challenge you to add the logic to spawn projectile function. And here is the line. As you can see, it has a variable to instantiate and a node to add a child to the instantiated variable. All we need to do is to add how it traverses. Make sure that the transform is equal to the global transform of this node. If you are wondering what transform is, here is where the transform is located. It handles the position, scale, rotation of a node. Create another input map for shooting. In the physics process function, let's add if input that is action just pressed attack and can shoot. We will call our spawn projectile. And as you can see, it can shoot some fireballs. Wait, what? Why are you peeing some fireballs? Let's fix it. The projectile will only travel in one direction. To fix this, we need to rotate the projectile spawn node when the sprite is flipped. First, let's adjust the marker's position. Just like how we adjust the position of the mount spawn, just instantiate the fireball so we can see what's happening. Make sure that you are adjusting the marker's position. Add this base parent node. And let's make it rotate when our character was flipped. All that's left is how to deal damage. Creating it was very easy. Add an area 2D node with collision shape. Rename the area hitbox. Ctrl S for save. We can duplicate this scene and just rename it as hurtbox. All we need to do is to tell the hurtbox if the hitbox was entered. Add a script to the hitbox. And name it hitbox. To apply this, just Ctrl Shift A to instantiate a node. Select hitbox and hurtbox. Into the enemy scene, select the hurtbox node. Select the area entered signal. And here, if area is hitbox, we will queue free itself. And on the player scene, select the area entered signal. We don't need to add anything here yet. Let's set the collision layer and mask for each node that has hitbox or hurtbox. Pause this video and try to assign the value of collision layer and collision mask of each hitbox and hurtboxes. So here are the values of each collision layers and collision mask. Just follow along. To add collision shapes on our hit and hurt boxes, just right click and select editable children. We can edit our collision shapes here. Now let's test it. As you can see, the enemy disappears. Let's work on the dismount mechanics of the player. On the player script, we'll reset its position by playing the unmount animation in the animation player. And set the is riding to false. On the enemy, let's delete the skill zone. Add a shape to the hitbox. On the player node, just make the mount disappear by removing the child of the mount spawn node. We are deleting the child at the index 0. And before I forget, let's add the sound effects on our fireball. Select this explosion sound effects. As you can see, our player was dismounted. Now let's do a little bit of cleanup. Our mount was not animating when we are moving. To fix this, add a script to our mount. In process, add these lines of code. It simply determines what input we are pressing, and it will play its animation. Open the player scene and add a timer. Rename this as fire rate. Check the one shot. Add the onReady variable. Add a timer signal. Add the timer starts. If you want to see the difference, I suggest adding 2 seconds. Let's set the can shoot variable into false whenever we shoot. Once the timer has run out, simply turn can shoot into true. I forget to set can shoot into false. And we are done. Remember, there are far better methods than this. There might be a lot of things that I did not cover. Please leave a like to my video and subscribe.